From the Zack Snyder fan club, it's the IGN Digigods. Now, please welcome Baby Doll and Sweet Pea, Wade Major and Mark Kaiser.
One of our listeners knows my sore spot. Corey, who is it?
That was brought to you by Chevelle Dixon, who knows the names of characters in Sucker Punch. And so do I.
Yeah, unfortunately, I remember that too. Mark, interesting. Let's just start off on something, first of all, the heat in Los Angeles.
It is 3 degrees cooler than hell.
It's horrible.
In the San Fernando Valley.
It's ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
It's insane. No, it's not just in the San Fernando Valley. It's everywhere.
I'm glad.
It's like 95 degrees everywhere. It's completely insufferable. Which I know is the reason that people like to live here, but you know, at a certain point, you kind of want to go Arctic. You really do.
To me, whoa, who did that? That was me, Wade.
I know.
I was reading about Donald Trump. You were setting up the show. You were setting up the whole computer thing, and I was reading about Donald Trump because he's funny. He is the entertainer in chief. He is our misogynist in chief.
I haven't. You know, it's funny because you know. Not to throw anything political out, but we're going to just for a second because the whole Bernie Sanders Donald Trump thing, the tandem. I'm just wondering how are people around the world covering this, because people must look at this as just what is going on over there.
But Bernie Sanders feels mainly of a piece with the Democratic Party, where Trump is like, he's this guy who's going out there saying the most ridiculous things, getting covered by all the media, whatever he does, whatever he says.
But you got to admit, Bernie Sanders is like your crazy old uncle.
Well, that's fine.
The guy that like gets everyone screaming at each other at Thanksgiving dinner.
But he's not commanding the general media attention like Trump is.
He's getting 27 and 28,000 people in stadiums. He's getting 5 times as many people as Hillary Clinton to his rallies.
Hillary Clinton's done. What I'm saying is that in terms of just the amount of coverage in the media.
True, that's true.
Trump is just because look, everybody sees ratings and clicks.
Trump.
Look, Trump means clicks. Bernie Sanders does not mean clicks unless it's on the Huffington Post or whatever.
I find the whole thing monstrously entertaining.
So do I.
I really do.
Who
knows how it all pans out? But
I'm not sure I'm not sure what's worse. Trump staying in the race or leaving the race? Because if he leaves the race becomes much less entertaining. But if he stays in the race, then we become more of a laughingstock to the world.
He is single-handedly responsible for Lindsey Graham making a YouTube video of himself in slow motion taking a baseball bat to his cell phone. What?
Lindsey Graham,
really?
He probably didn't know what YouTube was.
It's insane. All right. Anyway, we got a show. And we want to give a shout out to we have a lot of listeners who are doing their own thing on YouTube and on blogs and whatnot, and we want to start giving some of you a shout out. And Mark, we're giving a shout out this week to Wildman Willis.
Yeah, Wildman Willis.
Yeah. Now
he's on Facebook. He posts these film reviews. It's just Wildman, just him talking about a movie. He always sees it I'm not sure if he sees like the midnight show, like the Friday 12:01
He gets them
show.
up pretty punctually. He's on top of it.
Oh no, yeah. I'm not sure if he sees the midnight show or maybe the 10 a.m. show on the Friday, but he's up with it quick, man.
So what's his he's got the YouTube page, right?
You expect me to know this stuff off the top of my head?
I do. I expect you have it memorized. No, he's got his feed there somewhere on the channel.
Well, he has.
What's the channel?
It's called checking my computer right now. That's what it's called. It's called Willis Wheeler.
There you go.
Willis, Willis Wheeler.
All right.
And by the way, Willis, it's the same shot of Willis every time. It is Willis's head in front of some closets.
That's fine.
That's what, when you look at the thumbnails, it's like, okay, hang on a second, Willis, let me tell you something. Willis, do yourself a favor.
Get a backdrop?
No. Yes, make your thumbnail either the movie you're reviewing with maybe your head in the poster or something, or vary the backdrop. I'm just saying. Because the thing is that when you go to your page and you see it's the same thumbnail every single time, people may think that either there's not a lot of variety there. They may think maybe it's a mistake and it's the same review over and over again. So I'm just saying I would make the thumbnail something clickable and enticing for people to investigate all your other video reviews, which are all very good. Either make the thumbnail the poster for the movie, maybe you put your head in it or something, or vary the backdrop.
Well, it is on YouTube. Willis Wheeler, Willis, and Wheeler, and good stuff. Willis, keep it up.
And you got some free advice from me.
There you go.
Which you'll ignore,
which I get all the time. So just ignore it like I do.
Yeah, everyone ignores my advice.
And you know what, Mark? I also figured out this week why it is that I do not have a tattoo. I finally came to the conclusion why I do not have a tattoo. Do you know why?
Because you want to be buried in a Jewish cemetery?
I cannot. I wouldn't be able to decide which Kylie Minogue album cover.
Huh?
To choose. I wouldn't be able to choose a certain, which Kylie Minogue album cover I would want.
Normally, I say stop the recording when you say stupid jokes, but you got to stop the recording. I don't know what that was.
I'm not going to.
What does that mean? What does Kylie Minogue have to do with anything?
There are like 24 Kylie Minogue album covers. If you have to pick one for a tattoo, that's a burdensome
I have
task.
no idea what that means. Is that a story or
No.
people doing stuff?
Let's talk about
Kylie Minogue.
I don't know. It's a thing.
so 2003 of you.
Thank you.
Did people tattoo Kylie Minogue?
Maybe.
Let's get to the bottom of where this joke came from.
No. Do you want to talk about it? No.
Do people tattoo Kylie Minogue album covers on their body?
I would if I could pick one. Let's get. You want an obscure joke? Here's an obscure joke. Okay. Did you know there's a brand new social media platform for Shriners? It's
really?
It's called Facebook. There you go.
Aww.
How many people are actually going to get that?
See, that's funny.
There you go. It's funny to you because we live in L.A. We know the whole Shriner thing. Is there even such a thing as a Shriner outside of L.A.?
There must be, right?
I don't know. I can't imagine they're like Minnesota Shriners.
Huh. I guess that's true.
Anyway.
All right. Well, okay. Okay, folks, just go ahead and ignure the last 90 seconds of the show because we don't know what's going on.
So, really quickly, before we get into the DVDs, I just want to say I think there are two motion picture entertainment corporate entities out there that are really rolling the dice. And it doesn't seem like they're rolling the dice. I think they feel like this makes a lot of sense. But I'm going to say this right out. I think Warner Brothers is really investing a lot into the whole new DC cinematic universe thing, thinking that they are going to strike gold just like Marvel, that suddenly everyone's going to migrate from the Avengers, which seems to kind of be on a downturn now, and that their excitement for Justice League is going to be on the upturn, and we're going to be having, oh my gosh, we're going to be having, Shazam and Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and we're going to go crazy, and then it's going to be Superman versus Shazam, and then it's going to be, Green. We're going to relaunch the Green Lantern, and then we're going to have, Arrow's going to migrate to the movies, and Flash will. I think they have invested an awful lot that I don't think is necessarily going to pan out. It might, but I mean, they are really rolling the dice here.
I agree for two reasons. One is it seems reactionary. It seems
It's
like a
really
reaction to
reactionary.
Marvel's success.
Totally.
And also, there's a difference in tone, as everybody knows, between the Marvel films and the DC films. I think that the DC films,
I agree.
if they're all going to be brooding, self-serious, dark movies, which worked for The Dark Knight, I think if Shazam and Wonder Woman, if they're all going to be like that, I think the fans will get tired of that.
You're absolutely going to get tired of it. I mean, which is weird because in the comics, it was the reverse, right? DC was always the light and fluffy, and Marvel were always the brooding, angst-ridden, self-absorbed heroes. It just, for somehow they've done a flip in the movies. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, because they saw the success of The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Let's do more of that. Combined with the success of the Marvel films, which were more colorful and bright and poppy, and say, we don't want to do that.
No.
We already have an aesthetic that works based on the Batman films. Let's just keep going with that.
We have a Vox Box today as well.
You just interrupted me. You had no idea what I said.
I know what you said. We just have to move ahead. We have a Vox Box. The other thing that I was going to say is the other gamble is this Disney Star Wars Land thing, which they're going to have 14 acres in Anaheim attached to Disney World or to Disneyland, and then to Disney World in Orlando. They're going to throw up a 14-acre Star Wars theme park. Are you kidding me?
My issue there is that I look. It's a little bit like the Harry Potter world or the Jurassic Park thing, where the only reason why the movies exist is to perpetuate visits to the theme park, so people will want to ride the rides.
They have scheduled Star Wars episodes 7, 8, and 9. What, 3 spin-offs now? Aren't there like 3 spin-offs announced? There's
there's Rogue One.
Rogue One.
Colin Trevorrow was just named as the director of Star Wars 9.
Yeah. I mean, 3 spin-offs, and then a theme park. What if like it probably won't. It looks good. They got all the right people involved. But what if JJ's film tanks? What if everyone goes in the opening weekend? What if it makes $300 million opening weekend? Everyone hates it. Word gets out, and it drops 97% in the next weekend, and no one goes.
You know what? This
what if that happens?
If that happens, Donald Trump will become president because that's not going to happen.
Okay.
You know that JJ's film would have to be JJ's film would have to be Phantom Menace.
If Donald Trump became president, would he wear that pink tie? Do you think to his inauguration? Would he wear the pink tie?
You know what?
With the 80s collar on the shirt, the white collar on the powder blue shirt and the pink tie.
How many racial epithets
with tie bars holding up the collar?
How many
Remember
racial
those?
epithets will
I
he
used to wear those.
Will he sling at his inauguration speech?
Well,
My fellow Americans.
Well, I don't know.
He just goes nuts, man. And our jaws will drop and go, oh my God, we just voted 4 years of this guy.
You realize there are people who will vote specifically to make that happen.
Well, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, here's the thing, too, is that so far I'm of two minds because I feel like Disney is really making up for lost time regarding Star Wars. Like they are just Star Wars. They are Star Warsing the hell out of everything. They got. On the other hand, I can't say that they're picking bad directors.
No.
I'm just a little nervous that it's good talent, and you're getting talent who are very excited to do a Star Wars film because you're still talking about a generation whose love of movies and sci-fi were activated by Star Wars.
Yes.
Right? So they're thrilled and honored to do a Star Wars film. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
But there's a certain mercenary quality that is starting to emerge in terms of Disney's treatment of the Star Wars property.
Indeed.
So the verdict is out.
Yes.
The verdict is out, but everything will be set. The foundation will be set by JJ's film. If JJ's film is good, Star Wars will live on for the history of the world. If JJ's film is not good, which I'm sure it'll be fine.
Well, we don't know anything precisely about the story yet. All we know is that Adam Driver is the bad guy, which I'm not an Adam Driver fan. You know, I'll be honest. He's one of those kind of horse-faced actors. No offense, everybody knows what I'm talking about. But he looks like he could be part of the British royal family. And honestly, let's face it. If Prince Charles were not Prince Charles, would anybody cast him in a movie? Would you take a photograph of that face? Would you?
Here's the thing.
Adam Driver, he's a good actor, but it's just like there's nothing. I look at that face, and it's not menacing to me. He's not a menacing figure.
Really?
No.
I think he can go there.
You think so?
Yes.
I don't see
And
it.
by the way, it's going to be good. You know why?
See it.
You know why it's going to be good? Harrison Ford never makes a bad film.
Here's the other thing.
Do you think there'll be a GPS dog collar in Star Wars?
Yeah, I do think so.
There will be
Absolutely.
a GPS dog collar?
It'll be a GPS tauntaun collar. Here's the other thing, too. The reason that Darth Vader became such a legendary thing is because Darth Vader is a combination of things. It's a combination of David Prowse's body and body language and stature and James Earl Jones's voice.
We don't know. We haven't seen the character. We don't know what he's like. Who knows? I mean, right at this point, speculation about whether Darth Vader will be badass enough or whoever the new Darth Vader is, it's too early.
It's too early.
The only thing I will say is that because we live in such a social media internet world, there's much less mystery now. Like yes. Darth Vader, the reason why Darth Vader worked in 1977 was because all you knew of Darth Vader was the 2 hours of Star Wars. You didn't go online
Very true.
and see pictures of him, out of his costume, behind the scenes. You didn't go online and look at comment boards where everyone's saying how Darth Vader blows. All that sort of stuff you didn't get.
True.
There was a lot of mystery back then because you were only given a certain amount of information. Now, it's on entertainmentweekly.com, and people have behind-the-scenes set visits where they post illegal photos, and people talk about it everywhere. There's less mystery.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to get into DVDs and Blu-rays now. We got a fantastic release this week. Walt Disney Animation Studios Short Films Collection. This is a must-have. If you have any of the Pixar short collections, you just know that they do these things up absolutely right. This is a great collection of recent short films that are not necessarily the Pixar shorts, but they're from the main Disney Animation Studios. And it's really great stuff. Frozen Fever, Feast, Get a Horse, Paperman. Paperman won an Oscar. Did you see Paperman?
Paperman?
Paperman was amazing. Amazing.
You made that up.
No, Paperman won an Oscar
There's
a few
no
years ago.
Paperman.
There's Paperman.
Never heard
it's
of it.
amazing.
Never
you
heard
should
of
see Paperman. It's
How have I never heard of that?
You probably because you don't watch the shorts at Oscar
Oh,
season.
no, you're right. I don't.
You see, that's why you always lose the Oscar pool.
Really is true, actually, because the shorts that's what separates the men from the boys.
It does.
In terms of Oscar pools.
But you know, in recent years, there were a few years. I mean, because I've watched all the shorts and the docs pretty much every year for like the last decade. And for a while there, you were able to sort of get out in front of it and go, "That's the winner. That's not. That is. That isn't."
Just go for the Holocaust one.
Honestly, lately they've just been all over the map. There's been no way to tell, especially the live action shorts. They keep picking just horrible ones. I don't really understand it. Tangled Ever After, The Ballad of Nessie. Prep and Landing, you know, if anybody likes the Prep and Landing stuff.
I love the Prep and Landing
Prep and Landing,
stuff.
come on, you know Prep and Landing. They're the two little Santa elves.
You don't know Prep and Landing either.
Operation Secret Santa is the Prep and Landing short. TikTok Tale, How to Hook Up Your Home Theater, The Little Match Girl, Lorenzo, and John Henry. It's a great bunch of shorts. They're all fun. They're just terrific. You know, they're all over the map in terms of style. Everything from retro to cool CG and to, you know, stuff that's somewhere in between. It's really great. So, and you also get a bonus extra where you look inside the process of actually putting together a short. So it's great. That's the Walt Disney Short Films collection from the Walt Disney Animation Studios. It is a Blu-ray, DVD, and digital HD combo. Of course, the digital HD is not ultraviolet because Disney's not on board with that. So it is part of the Disney Movies Anywhere implementation, which I frankly think is better than ultraviolet, and I'm hoping that everybody will sort of migrate to the Disney system eventually and maybe merge them so that nobody is having to choose between all of their digital HD implementations. But anyway... and Frozen Fever, by the way, is the first time it's on Blu-ray. So that was not on the Blu-ray of Frozen, but you get Frozen Fever on here. All right, Mark, we're going to get into docs.
We are.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
So let's do the doc thing.
Would you like you starting?
You
or
know
am I
what? I'll
starting?
start because did you finally watch
this show is a train wreck. Am I starting things? Are you starting things?
I'll start.
We don't know what's going on.
I'll start.
By the way, I have a piece of cake for you later.
Did you finally get around to watching this?
I did.
Good. Thank goodness. I Am Chris Farley.
You are?
No, the documentary is I Am Chris Farley.
You are?
It is on Blu-ray. I think this is great. Did you like it?
It's fine. Yes, I mean it's. You know what? It seems like a very standard documentary. There are sound bites. There's some clips. Talking heads. I can't say that was amazing insight. You know what I was?
No amazing insight. The fact that Chris Farley was this really religious guy who
I like that part.
That part was amazing.
But you know what though? I feel like it seemed like they threw that in there as like a curveball.
Because his childhood buddy's a priest, and he's like, that whole...
Don't give it away.
Well,
but his real name is.
But his whole sort of approach to the kids' hospital. I was crying at a certain point. I mean, what a big-hearted guy.
You know, I thought there was. Here's what I was missing.
He had a heart bigger than his body.
It's so beautiful. I was missing that moment where, like, how did he become so self-destructive and manic? What was it? Like, I feel like there was that little bit of explaining how he became, because he wasn't just insecure. He was immensely insecure. He wasn't just an addict. He was everything he did was immense.
What they really point out well is that that talk show bit where where he's the talk show guy, where he does the bit with Paul McCartney. You remember that time? That was awesome. That is actually who he was. That really big-hearted, lovable, insecure kind of dopey guy. That's the true him, and I thought that was beautiful.
I love that skit. The Paul McCartney.
So
that's the best.
Funny. It's so funny.
Look, I didn't like it. I felt it was completely, absolutely fine.
Mike Myers is literally crying and laughing when he's telling that shower story. That's good stuff.
And what's funny is that David Spade, in a way, has still not gotten over the death of Chris Farley.
You can tell. You can tell. It really took the wind out of him emotionally and psychologically. Anyway, just about everybody is interviewed here. It's amazing. I mean, Lorne Michaels, obviously, Dan Aykroyd and John Lovitz. If you want to talk about people from sort of earlier generations, weigh in with some very, very salient observations about what Saturday Night Live stardom does to a person, because it's an amazing trajectory that these people who are, one day barely paying the rent in New York, and they're doing sketch comedy and maybe doing stand-up, and suddenly they're on television performing weekly and busting their chops for millions and millions and millions of people every week. And then suddenly from there, if you do it right, you are launched into the stratosphere and you are wealthy and famous overnight. But to do a movie is different from doing a live television sketch show, and a lot of people don't make that transition very well, and presumably Chris Farley didn't make it very well either, even though those movies are funny. Emotionally, he never seemed to sort of wrap himself around the fame and success.
That is true. So we both liked it, but Wade liked it more than me.
I like it a lot. All right,
Wade, here's the thing. I talked to Mike Robin yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Robin, of course, the producer of Stupid for Movies, which is never coming back ever. And Mike did a show called Take My Bitcoins.
Yes.
All about Bitcoins. And I appeared on the show.
Oh, I know you
did. Special guest. You can Google it, YouTube it, Take My Bitcoins, Mark Kaiser, and you will see my appearance for 1 hour on the show.
Funny.
Part of me being on that show was that I received 0.1 of a Bitcoin. Like, that was my appearance fee, which, by the way, I never received. I said to him yesterday, I go, you realize I have never received my goddamn 0.1 of a Bitcoin.
That's so funny.
So I mentioned all that because it's a documentary called The Rise and the Rise of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Which is funny because when I talked to Mike about Bitcoins, I said, yeah, Mike, nice show. How are Bitcoins doing? They're in the tank. No one cares about Bitcoin.
Well, you know what? There was another Bitcoin documentary that I reviewed for Film Week last year, I guess it was. And the whole concept, I do think it is somewhat inevitable that something like Bitcoin eventually becomes the global currency, whether or not it's the currency that you use to buy your groceries, or whether or not it's a currency that exists kind of under the hood for international currency traders to sort of have some kind of a common something to transition everything into and then out of. In whatever form it happens, something like this will eventually become a standardization, but nobody really understands it. That's the problem. Nobody really knows what a Bitcoin is, and when you explain it to them, the confusion becomes even worse.
And it's funny because on the back of the DVD box, they called cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Crypto sounds a lot like cryptic.
Yes, it does.
And that's exactly what Bitcoins
what
are. So I don't, look, is this interesting? It's going to wind up being a little blip in history.
Yeah.
Like, this thing is going to wind up, this documentary will be seen not as a chronicle of the beginning of a new global currency.
Yeah.
It'll be seen as like this little documentary about this thing that happened in 2013,
and some
14,
of the scandals,
Bitcoins.
and some of these scandalous things involved, that nobody really knows where they're housed, and they get hacked and they lose them, and there have been a lot of scandals, but it's really not on anybody's radar.
I just think this documentary, while fine, is just it's on the wrong. It seems old news now because Bitcoins are not really taking off like they thought they would. Much better though is a documentary called Lambert and Stamp. Now, Lambert and Stamp, these guys were the managers of The Who. This is Kit Lambert and Chris Stamp. Maybe you've heard of Kit Lambert. They wound up managing The Who. And what's great about this documentary, Lambert and Stamp, is that it's a music documentary, but it's an interesting showbiz story about the 60s and early 70s in rock and roll, and how, these guys, they had this high wire act of a band in their early years, and how they wound up getting them where they needed to be in order to become one of the iconic bands of all time. I thought it was great. I thought it's interesting stuff. It does have great music, but it has great behind-the-scenes video. Much of this, I guarantee you've never seen before. There's a commentary with the director, and also with Henry Rollins, who, of course, is, almost an historian of rock and roll, and does a great weekly column for the LA Weekly here in Los Angeles. Lambert and Stamp is just a really terrific, mostly black and white documentary about these two guys who helped change rock and roll by plucking this crazy little group of guys out of nowhere in the UK and turning them into The Who. And good stuff. Lambert and Stamp.
Fabulous. And then we've got, I'm going to blow through just a bunch of PBS stuff here because it's golden time for PBS with documentaries, and they have a lot of great releases last few weeks. Life on the Reef is one of their occasional Blu-rays, and this is just spectacular photography of the Great Barrier Reef which of course is in many respects endangered. So you definitely want to get this because it could look like a sandbar tomorrow. But it's just absolutely beautiful, and it's a good doc too. I mean, it's courtesy of Screen Queensland, so it is an Australian production, and they know their backyard better than anybody else. Life on the Reef, the blue frontier where man meets wild. It's just the underwater photography. I never get sick of underwater photography. It's just fantastic. Ancient Roads, From Christ to Constantine, is a great archaeological tour, one of those kind of British deals where a scholar, in this case Jonathan Phillips, who is a historian of the era, basically takes you to all of these historical sites and recounts what presumably happened there, what did happen there, what was alleged to have happened there, and why it matters. And it's great. 6 different episodes. Fantastic. It's essentially an archaeological history of Christianity through these specific sites over the first few hundred years of Christian history. It's really, really interesting and pretty great. And moving on through the rest of these, The Road to Fame is an interesting look at a production, a collaboration between the government of China and Broadway, where the senior class of the Central Academy of Drama in Beijing puts on a production of the musical Fame. It's interesting. It's a little odd. I'm a Peking opera fan myself. I kind of prefer traditional performance. When seeing Broadway productions done overseas is a little bit odd. I've seen Shakespeare in French. That's a little odd too. I've seen Moliere in English. That's also a little odd. So I respect the cross-cultural pollination, but it's okay. 3 really interesting Frontlines, all of them very, very, very relevant still. Frontline, I don't know how these guys must work 28 hours a day with teams of editors. I don't know how they throw this stuff together.
It's a huge operation there.
It's unbelievable.
All these producers, so many editors.
But at a certain point, a single vision has to take hold. I just don't know how they work. Frontline is it's phenomenal what they do.
It's a corporate tree of approvals.
Yeah, I guess. So anyway, Obama at war, Syria, Iraq, and the struggle against ISIS.
Well, let me tell you something. Once Donald Trump gets in there ISIS will be gone in 9 months. Gone.
Secrets, politics, and torture. The secret history of the CIA's controversial interrogation program. And on a slightly more upbeat note, the trouble with chicken. Inside a major salmonella outbreak and a broken food safety system, which, after all this war and ISIS and everything and spying and torture, I'll tell you, salmonella and chicken is really pretty upbeat.
Salminio?
Yes. So anyway, this stuff, all 3 of these are just really, really first rate. They don't take sides. They just drill down. They give you the raw facts, and it's all very, very timely. Still very, very timely. From the Nova series, The Great Math Mystery. You have to kind of be a little bit of a math nerd to really appreciate this, because my eyes glazed over and I suddenly had flashbacks of Thursdays in elementary school when I would be sick every Thursday because I didn't want to have to do math. My mother eventually figured that out. So the idea here is trying to approach what math really is. Is it something that we invented to try to understand the universe, or does the universe actually operate on mathematic principles? Which is an interesting question.
It's true. It's a little bit like time.
Yeah.
Like how come time is time?
That's it.
The Earth revolves around the sun, and that's a year. And
if a tree falls in the forest, no one's around to hear it. Does it make a sound?
That's the dumbest. You know what? Can I say something? That's just look. Of course, it makes a sound. Just are people so egocentric that if they don't hear something, it doesn't happen?
That's correct.
You realize that I did not
when
personally...
I am not actually making podcasts with you, you don't exist. You are silent. You are a non-entity.
You realize that all the things that would not happen if we didn't see it or hear it?
I know.
99.9% of all the things in the universe that ever happened would not happen because we didn't see it or hear it.
Probably true. Also from Nova...
Don't get me started, Wade.
I know. Also from Nova, Lethal Seas, which is... you never want to go in the water again. Forget about sharks. This is unbelievable. Everything that is going on in the oceans right now, not just the things that live in it, but the acidity of the ocean, the way that the chemical balance of the ocean is changing, it's horrifying. And this is, forget about climate change. This will just make you think the oceans are going to be the death of us eventually. From nature, a little bit more encouraging is the sagebrush sea, which is not the same as lethal seas. This is essentially America's forgotten habitat. And it's about this amazing ecosystem of sagebrush that goes across 11 states in the United States, and it's just a sprawling thing. You don't think of it as an ecosystem, but it is, and it's about in everything that goes on in that ecosystem and why it is so important and how it all works together. It's beautiful. And then lastly, the Homefront, which is basically portraits of American military families. Very, very touching, very nicely done. And Operation Wild, which is all about physicians and primarily animal doctors.
Veterinarian.
Thank you. I knew there was a word for them. No, basically how we're using our medicine, in other words, discoveries for humans, how it's transitioning over to being able to help animals, as opposed to the other way around, which is usually the way it is. You research on an animal to figure out how to help a person. In this case, we're finding cures for human diseases and illnesses and ailments that those people, what are they called again?
Veterinarians.
That they're using on animals. Interesting, right? Nice.
It is interesting.
All right. All right. New movies. What do we got coming out? New movies.
Interesting. We have an interesting movie here, Wade, called 5 to 7. No, not the French New Wave classic Cleo from 5 to 7. This is a new 5 to 7. Did I say 9 to 7 earlier? This is with
9 to 5, Dolly Parton?
Oh, working 9 to 5.
Sweet. Yeah.
Anyway, this is 5 to 7 with an interesting cast. This stars Anton Yelchin and Bernice Merlot.
Yeah, Marlowe. Bernice Marlowe.
Bernice Marlowe.
Yeah, good for her. I don't know who she is, but
she's terrific in this. This has got a great cast. Now, wait, I didn't realize this before this movie existed, but in France there's a thing called like 5 to 7 affairs.
Yes.
Where men, I guess women do it too, they have affairs between the hours of 5 and 7 because that's like kind of after work, but before the guy would get home.
Right.
So it's like, it's...
There's also a statute under French law that says if you within that time period, it doesn't actually count as infidelity.
That's not
It's
true.
actually a French law.
That's not true.
It goes all the way back to Julius Caesar or something.
Julius Caesar, one of my favorite French authors.
Absolutely.
He was fantastic.
Yeah, he was.
Anyway, Anton Yelchin is a guy who falls in love with this woman, Bernice Marlowe, and they have a 5 to 7 affair. And what's interesting about this movie is that it hits a lot of emotional beats, mostly thanks to writer-director Victor Levin. A lot of films are a little hesitant to hit in our cynical times. This thing is very sentimental, almost courageously so. It is, it wears its heart on its sleeve, doesn't hold back its emotions, and I really appreciated that. It's got a great cast, including Frank Langella and Glenn Close, Olivia Thirlby. Olivia Thirlby, she started out like a young girl, when she started out her career. Now, she's kind of moderately delicious.
Well, I'm glad you've gone there. Thank you.
Putting out there. Anyway, this is a good movie. It's an interesting movie. It's definitely a good date movie if you've got like a rather sensitive, emotional girlfriend. You want to impress them with your knowledge, and yet it does star the guy from Star Trek. That's good, Anton Yelchin, and it stars one of the Bond girls from Skyfall. So it's definitely some pop culture relevancy there. But ultimately, this is a very emotional, sentimental, almost courageously sentimental story that I thought was terrific. 5 to 7, Anton Yelchin. On the other end of the quality scale is Skin Trade with Dolph Lundgren and Tony Jaa. Now, the only reason why I want to see Tony Jaa...
Why is Tony Jaa making Dolph Lundgren movies? That's what I want to know.
See, I don't want to see Tony Jaa holding a gun. Like he is.
Ever.
You want to see Tony Jaa kicking and flying through like car windows.
Yes.
But this movie does have Ron Perlman, and we love Ron Perlman because he'll do anything. And it has Steve Weller in it. So anyway, it's a Dolph Lundgren film. By the way, Dolph Lundgren is starring in Kindergarten Cop 2.
Heaven help us.
Exactly.
Not good.
Anyway, it has to deal with human trafficking and an FBI agent played by Michael Jai White. And it's there's so many other films, action films you can be watching. Just rewatch The Raid.
Yeah.
Actually, rewatch The Raid instead of watching that or Vendetta with Dean Cain and some guy called The Big Show.
he's
now, I'm not sure if that's his given name.
He's a wrestler.
Or I don't think that's his given name. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
And by the way, Dean Cain, he's getting older. His face is getting rounder. He's not badass, not interested. He plays a detective who's he wants revenge on this bad guy who murdered his wife. It's just ridiculous. It's all just bad stuff. Although what's interesting is that it was directed by two women. They're sisters, Jen and Sylvia Soska. And all I can say is that they can definitely put a movie together. I mean, it's the issues here are not where they put the camera. The issue is with the horrible script and the whole B-movie feel of the whole thing. But, look, it's nice to see two women directing an action film. Certainly nothing wrong with that.
All right. And, this thing got some really strangely mixed reviews. I loved the trailer when it originally came out. We're talking about Fox Searchlight's release of Far From the Madding Crowd.
Look, when you saw that trailer, you said to me, you've got to watch this trailer. It made me cry. Good. It's going to be so amazing.
I really thought this was great. And I got to say, I think it compares very, very well with the original John Schlesinger film from 1967, which is considerably longer. And I think they realize that. This comes in just under 2 hours. The Schlesinger film is, very close to 3 hours. So there's a lot more story. There's a lot more Thomas Hardy. There's a lot more of all of that really dense plotting and dramatization that Hardy's novels are so filled with. This feels a little bit threadbare relative to the novel, but it's beautifully done. Now, the original Schlesinger film, of course, had Julie Christie, Peter Finch, Terrence Stamp, Alan Bates, an unbelievable cast. And this one is not that level cast. Carey Mulligan certainly up there. Matthias Schoenaerts, who we talked about last week, he's like the new go-to,
he's cool,
hot dude in movies. But Michael Sheen, Tom Sturridge. It's not a shabby cast at all. Not quite on that friggin' Alan Bates, Peter Finch, Julie Christie. I mean that's a big deal. Terrence Stamp, man, but. It compares very well, and I wouldn't recommend one of them over the other. I would say if you love the novel, you want to watch them both. Why not? This also comes with an extended ending and tons of bonus content, including deleted scenes and process of the adaptation, all the usual featurette stuff. So and also Ultraviolet. So it's a beautiful Blu-ray, wonderfully photographed, fantastic production all around. I don't know if this thing will necessarily get any love come Oscar time. It feels like it was released.
It disappeared.
It was released too early. Definitely too early.
And plus, nobody really talked about it. No, it didn't strike any emotional chords. It wasn't like.
However, Thomas Vinterberg has a following.
He's the man.
People love Thomas Vinterberg.
I do. I love him. Yep.
I feel like he still has his.
He has his Oscar-winning masterpiece in him.
Yeah, he's got it in him.
I think he's got to go back to his home country and make some crazy movie that wins for best foreign film or something.
He has something in him. Anyway.
Oh, he's great.
And then also, as long as we're talking about great actresses, Strangerland with Nicole Kidman, Joseph Fiennes, Hugo Weaving. This is interesting. Nicole Kidman went back to Australia to make an Australian film again, which she hasn't done in quite some time, for director Kim Farrant, who is, this is essentially her first feature film. She's done some interesting shorts prior to this. And Strangerland, the one thing I'll say about this, it's really ambitious, not entirely successful. Joseph Fiennes was not the original choice for this. Guy Pearce was the original choice, and he dropped out, and then they went with Joseph Fiennes. And you can't if you know that, it's very hard to watch this without thinking, boy, Guy Pearce would have been so much better. And I love Joseph Fiennes, but he just feels like an afterthought, which is too bad. It's not quite right for him. But that said, the idea here is that, why is it all? There's so many Australian films like this where someone wanders off and just disappears, or someone's child disappears, whether it's a Picnic at Hanging Rock or A Cry in the Dark. There's a whole subgenre of movies where people who live on the coasts of Australia, they wander into that just black hole vortex of the outback that constitutes the middle of the country. You ever look on satellite map?
Walkabout.
Remember Walkabout? Walkabout, similar kind of a thing. But you ever notice, like, when you look at maps or nighttime satellite photography, where you see the bright parts of the Earth where all the energy is being sucked up, and Australia has these really bright spots, right, where the cities are, Melbourne and Perth and Sydney, and then just the center of that continent is just black. There's nothing there. And that seems to be the fear, that if you leave the outskirts of the coasts and you wander into the middle of the continent, you'll vanish.
Dingoes will eat your baby.
Exactly. So this is one of those. There's basically they play a couple, Nicole Kidman and Joseph Fiennes. They have a couple of kids, older daughter who's really rebellious and a younger son, and the kids vanish in a dust storm. and it becomes this whole thing. And then Hugo Weaving is the investigator who's got to put it together. It's a small town, and this reminded me a lot of Ray Lawrence movies. Mark, you have no idea who Ray Lawrence is, do you?
That's Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence's kid.
You're illiterate. Ray Lawrence is an Australian
You
director.
call me illiterate, and I have cake for you. I have cake for you.
You are
just
so
called me
smart.
illiterate.
You are smarter than Donald Trump.
Don't insult me.
Anyway, so the movie is Strangerland. It feels a little bit like a Ray Lawrence movie. Ray Lawrence is a guy who basically he's made like 3 movies in his whole career, including the amazing Lantana and Jindabyne.
Lantana was cool.
Lantana's amazing. Ray Lawrence's deal is that he makes these movies about really kind of brooding, angst-ridden people, and he only does one take ever for any scene. You know, he'll just like tell the actors, "This is it. Do it. Okay, we're done. Not going to do it again." I mean, which is really amazing and
That's
kind
impossible.
of daunting. That's what he does.
What happens if an actor forgets his dialogue?
That's it. Done. It just seriously, they'll tell you it's like opening night on Broadway for his films. You feel this immense pressure and exhilaration to do it right the first time because you know he's not going to give you a second take. But his movies are amazing. This seems to want to go into that same place because you get the same small town feel where everybody knows each other. It's a little bit like Jindabyne, the way that things start to unravel in this town, and all the deep, dark secrets come out. But you know what? In all due respect to her, Kim Farrant is not. She's not Ray Lawrence. So yet, at least. So it's a respectable film, deeply flawed, but interesting. And the more I think about it, the more I'm forgiving of it. And then, interesting little Patrick Stewart sidebar here is Match, which is written and directed by Stephen Belber. Patrick Stewart's doing a lot of, interesting little small throwaway movies now that he's made such a ridiculous amount of money from Star Trek and X-Men. He can afford to do what he wants. This is an IFC release, and Stephen Belber, who directed this, wrote the play. It's originally a Tony Award nominated play. And Patrick Stewart plays this crazy New York ballet instructor who kind of his whole world is just completely turned upside down when this Seattle couple shows up to interview him about his past. And it feels very much like a play. I'm still very out on Matthew Lillard. He and Carla Gugino play the couple. I love her. Lillard, he kind of won me over a little bit in The Descendants, but he's still...
I feel like he's still goofy. There's something I can't take seriously
shaggy.
about him.
He's
he's shaggy.
You
It's
know?
the role he was born to play and be remembered for.
So if you like the play, you like the movie.
Oh, I love the play. Who didn't see that play?
Exactly.
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
True Story is based on a true story. Stars Jonah Hill and James Franco. It's an interesting true story. Jonah Hill plays the New York Times reporter. Maybe you've heard of him, Michael Finkel. He was fired from the New York Times for embellishing stories. And so he's trying to revitalize his career when he winds up running into this convicted murderer played by James Franco. And this murderer was trying to elude authorities by using his name. So this murderer is trying to elude authorities by using the name of a disgraced New York Times reporter.
That's a pretty good idea.
So, is it really?
I think I'm going to do that.
So this reporter, played by Jonah Hill, he smells a juicy feature that only he is qualified to write because this guy is using his name to elude authorities, and they arrange to meet in jail. And so it starts in this interesting, although maybe not convincing enough, cat and mouse thing where the killer will tell the truth about the events only to the disgraced New York Times writer if he delays the publication till after his trial is over, if Jonah Hill gives James Franco writing lessons of all things. So it's an interesting little cat and mouse game. I have to say that I wish it was a little more sophisticated in its construction and storytelling. Mm-hmm. I don't know that the movie is really all that convincing. And I have to say, I don't know that I buy Jonah Hill as somebody that serious. It is not, to me, Jonah Hill does not have a lot of shading or complexity. He seems a bit, and I hate to say this, I used to know him and work with him. This is over, it's about 10 years ago. To me, he's just a funny man. I'm sorry. I just don't.
You're talking about a double Oscar nominee now.
I know. I know. I don't know why. It's just, I mean, do you find there's a lot of depth there? Lot of shading?
He's the new Joe Pesci. He is. He's the new Joe Pesci. At least that's how he's being
But there was
used.
a danger in Joe Pesci. You felt like a lot of, with Joe Pesci.
You don't think that there was a danger with his prosthetic penis in the Scorsese film?
Exactly. Anyway, so it's a nice try. It's a great story. Felicity Jones is in this too, and I'm Wade's favorite, Felicity Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a good bunch of special features in here, including an alternate ending, some deleted scenes, a featurette about the actual killer, the guy Christian Longo. So, all I can say is it was a nice try. Everyone tried. It's an interesting story. I don't know that it's quite convincing enough, but it's worth a rental.
So Peter Bogdanovich has a new film coming out.
Yeah, it's not. I haven't seen it. I was going to see it, got invited. Then I heard it's not great.
Awesome. It's awesome.
Is it awesome?
It's awesome. It is.
Really?
Yeah. Not quite so awesome, but still respectable, is a movie written and directed by, or co-written and directed by his daughter, Antonia, which is Phantom Halo, which is out now from Arc Entertainment. And, to her credit, she's not heavily trafficking on her famous family. She's not going to change her name, but this is actually a pretty decent little kind of sort of semi-pseudo crime noir. And it deals with, a couple of brothers who are sort of who've got this just ragingly horrible dad. He's an alcoholic and he can't hold down a job. And, he's addicted to gambling. Anyway, it's a tough little kind of, what was the Barry Levinson thing, the gambling movie?
Star Wars.
No, the Barry Levinson gambling thing. You know what I'm talking about, with Edward Norton.
Oh yeah.
What was that? It's got a little. See, why am I?
Don't stop the recording.
Okay, keep it. Anyway, it's got that vibe to it.
Hang on, I'm getting there.
Stringers, clickers, blunkers, movers, hunkers. You know what I'm talking about. It's
no layouts. It's like something right? Clickers, clackers,
schmuckers, movers, dinkers, floated. Well, anyway. You'll get it. You'll find it.
Now I have to look it up now. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Sneakers. No, that's the other one with Robert Redford.
I like that movie.
Yeah, that's all right.
Phil Alden Robinson.
Sure.
Sleepers.
Thank you. Anyway, so Phantom Halo has kind of a Sleepers vibe to it. I always enjoy watching Rebecca Romaine, formerly Rebecca Romaine Stamos in movies, ever since she kind of got sort of booted out of the X-Men cast by Jennifer Lawrence. She hasn't had much to do, so it's nice to see her show up in things. And otherwise, it's pretty decent. Pretty decent little movie. So anyway, Phantom Halo from Antonia Bogdanovich, daughter of the great Peter Bogdanovich. Let's see what else she has to do. And then another movie here that I want to like this so badly. The Seventh Dwarf is a German animated film that wants to kind of be a German version of Shrek. It's one of these sort of satirical potpourris of all these fairy tale pieces all lodged together, a little bit of Sleeping Beauty, a little bit of Snow White. It's all kind of, jammed together, and a little wink and a nod, and a cute giant-headed dragon, and everything all ties up nicely at the end. And you go, well, that's interesting. I didn't realize all those fairy tales had all those common elements, and you could weave them together that way. And it should be much more charming than it is, but it's not, unfortunately, because it's made by Germans, and being half German, I can tell you, Germans aren't exactly a light and fluffy people. So this is not what they should necessarily be doing. However, some of the voice casting is good, and they give it the real college try. And this was a theatrical release from Shout Factory, and we are big fans of Shout Factory. So they are finally dipping their toes in the theatrical release realm, and in that respect, I can't blame them for acquiring this. They picked up a film that was, I think, a good gamble. And even though it's not the best thing out there, if you're trying to launch yourself as a theatrical distributor after being a very successful DVD and Blu-ray distributor, I think probably this is a good gamble. So they did a good job here, generally speaking, with not the greatest material. But there it is. It is called The Seventh Dwarf, and this is a 3D Blu-ray, DVD, and digital copy combo set. So you get everything here, including a few little extras, including sing-alongs.
A sing-along?
Sing-along.
Who doesn't love a sing-along?
Gotta love a sing-along. And then also I've got a thing called She Loves Me Not, which is from Monarch, and a decent cast in a pretty good drama with Cary Elwes basically playing a hard-drinking novelist trying to hold his life together. And you see basically you see all of this unfold through the eyes of different women in his lives. And it's called She Loves Me Not, and Carrie Elwes is supported by Joey Lauren Adams, Brianna Evigan, Karen Black, and Lisa Edelstein. So interesting little ambitious film directed by Brian Jun, who also produced it and co-wrote it. And it feels a little precious, but it's all right.
Also something that's all right is Wild Horses. Wild Horses is a film that was written and directed by Robert Duvall, and he is a national treasure. This movie, however, not a national treasure. It's okay. It stars Duvall. He plays, as usual, the crusty, gruff, Western dude living in Texas. Turns out there's a missing persons case that's reopened after a dozen years or so. Turns out that the missing person was probably murdered on a ranch belonging to this wealthy family, and that's how the mystery begins. What I think he's trying to do here, which I don't think he 100% pulls off, one of John Sayles' last decent films was Lone Star, and that had that multi-generational thing going on. This is supposed to be kind of a Lone Star thing. Like there's a mystery involved, multi-generational, takes place in the in the West, not in the West, like in Texas Rangers and whatnot. I just think it's a little bit disjointed, and it doesn't always kind of come together. Although I do love Duvall and James Franco's in it too, along with Josh Hartnett. So there's some good stuff here, mainly because of the cast. But in terms of this thing coming together as this, pan-generational story of corruption and murder and mystery and whatnot, I just think it doesn't really come together. So, what can I say? Wild Horses, not that great. Duvall went on to direct other better films. This one, though, I would pass on it.
We have a new Abel Ferrara film, and it's amazing to me. Abel Ferrara is still kind of on the fringes and being provocative. I still don't feel like he's ever made his masterpiece. I don't feel like he's made that movie that will just, be his legacy. Everything feels like he's just barely missing the mark, But they're always interesting. He always touches on something that pushes buttons. And Welcome to New York, which might play as an interesting twofer along with King of New York.
You could say God bless you.
Good.
Thank you.
Gesundheit.
Well, that's fine, too.
So Welcome to New York is essentially his version of the Dominic Strauss-Kahn scandal. If everybody remembers when Dominic Strauss-Kahn had that, there was like the whole hooker deal. And this is somewhere, I guess, between Bad Lieutenant and King of New York, if you're going to sort of position it there. Anyway, Dominic Strauss-Kahn threatened to sue over this film, and then Abel Ferrara threatened to sue over the edited version of the film when it was released in the United States, when they changed his cut of it. And so there were a lot of lawsuits floating around. I don't know the status of any of them, but I find it interesting that Dominic Strauss-Kahn is going to get a much more direct movie treatment, because it was just announced in the last few days that Warner Brothers is going to actually make a film about that whole thing. And it's pretty impressive, because the guy who wrote it, it's a spec script by a UCLA master screenwriting graduate. He just graduated, and this was his spec script in school. So good for him, Ben Coppett, for putting my alma mater back on the map again. But in any case, the role of Strauss-Kahn, or ostensibly the character who reflects Strauss-Kahn in here, is Gerard Depardieu, who is being as fat and lascivious and disgusting and imperious and egomaniacal as he possibly can. And it feels very much like all those other characters in Abel Ferrara movies who just completely lose control and descend into a den of decadence. Again, not Abel Ferrara's best film, but certainly a very interesting film, and one worth checking out, especially if you are an Abel Ferrara fan. That is on Blu-ray, courtesy of Sundance Selects.
Wait, here's a bad movie you don't want to watch. Love Letter. Let me tell you something, Wade.
Yes.
What do you do? What can you do when your best friend is of the opposite sex?
You could eat a piece of cake.
Oh,
you need to get me cake. Because we're going to have to do a Vox Box here in a second before we wind out the show. And I want to eat cake during the Vox Box. No, not yet.
Anyway, it stars Romeo Miller and Keisha Knight Pullum. And she's an advice columnist. Her best friend is this guy named Aaron. They've been inseparable. He's about to get engaged with a woman he doesn't really love. So she winds up writing an anonymous letter to her own advice column asking for advice. This was a TV movie that, I don't know what to say. It's just a lousy, TV movie. It's just lame.
No, I'm sorry.
I mean, I didn't watch this whole thing. Come on, people. Seriously. This is like combat pay at some point. Watch this stuff. It's got Jack A. Harris and a bunch of other people that I couldn't stand.
So Lone Scherfig, who is a very, very good Danish director, she was part of the Dogma group at one point, right? She did An Education.
Yes.
Which I thought was really going to launch her
I know.
into...
Where'd that go?
Well, it went to the Riot Club, which is kind of a step backwards. It's fine. I feel like she's just got a better movie in her than this. This is kind of like it's like a Billionaire Boys Club type deal, except it takes place in Oxford. And there's a better movie in her than telling us how horrible these upper crust snotty silver spoon entitled malignant misogynists live. And I don't know. It feels like another one of those movies about all those prep school as prison movies where there's some kid who goes to prep school and next thing you know he's being hazed and
Sure.
abused, and at some point somebody sexually abuses him. It's just horrible, and you just realize, oh my gosh, prep schools are just like prison. There's at least a dozen of those, and some of them are European and some of them are American, and they're all sort of the same. And this just kind of goes in that direction, and I feel there's a better movie here. But anyway, she's a very good director. She gets good performances. She knows where to put the camera. The film is really well crafted. I just wish, it's the female director thing, and I hate having to go there. But if An Education had been directed by a man, that man would have gone on to get the call to direct the next Weinstein, Fox Searchlight, Oscar caliber mega film with a huge all-star cast. I just feel like, that would have gotten her on that list. For whatever reason, the women have to perform doubly hard and work and make films twice as good as the men just to get some of the same meetings.
I agree.
It sucks. It really sucks. There are guys out there directing movies who shouldn't be directing movies. Lone Scherfig should be getting those jobs. All right. Now we are going to drop in for... What?
I was about to sing the song.
Well, go ahead. Sing the song. Yes. Sing the song. If it qualifies as a song.
Oh, it's a song. Let me see how long I can do this for.
Oh, dear. Here we go. It's going to use up the rest of the show. We won't have time for the Vox Box.
Oh, yeah. You'll talk about some name-dropping BS. Okay.
Hey guys, I wanted to talk about the future of home video, and I think it will be very similar to where music has gone. Digital music has become very much the norm, and vinyl records are very popular among collectors, but collectors only, really. I believe Wade has said this before, but it would end up being a collector's market, where companies like Criterion and Kino and Cohen would continue to release titles, but the major studios will more than likely stop releasing physical copies of movies and release movies instead on Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon and other streaming services like that. But my point is, I've also been thinking about the mindset of movie collectors, and one day I was thinking about whether or not Disney would ever release the theatrical version of the Star Wars trilogy on Blu-ray, and the words "we deserve to have it" actually went through my mind, and I realized that collectors may have developed a sort of this idea of privilege, the idea that if the studio chooses not to release something on home video, then we're being ripped off. Yet before the VCR, the only way to see a movie was to hope it played at a local theater, and that was totally fine. So, would you agree that this idea of privilege exists among collectors? Instead, should we be more focused on celebrating what the studios have given us access to? Do you think I'm just beginning to grieve the death of the home video market? But anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and keep up the amazing work with the show, as always. And thanks so much. Bye.
That was longtime listener Eric Altieri. Eric, thank you for a really thoughtful question. We could probably do a whole show on that. It's an interesting question. The studios definitely. There are a couple of different theories on this, and Mark, get me my cake. Get me cake, and then you can respond when you get back with the cake. One is that the studios really don't they don't like having they don't like having their product out there quite so ubiquitously, that they want to start to sort of claim it back more so that they can exploit it more, and that they would start streaming things more and not making them make only a handful of things available on packaged media, Oscar nominees and things where they know there's a collector's market for it, and otherwise everything else they can control access. And then there's the view that the studios really aren't interested in the life of anything, which is why Paramount now distributes all of their. Well done.
How loud was that? On a scale of 1 to 10, how loud was that?
I don't know, like 3.
Really?
It wasn't bad.
Okay.
So where Paramount basically now has yielded their whole library over to Warner Brothers to distribute, and because everything is temporary, there's no shelf life for anything anymore, so the libraries don't mean anything. What are you
Keep talking.
Okay, fine. Hello. Okay. Let me see the picture. I want likeness approval on this.
It looks fine.
Show me the picture.
I took a picture of Wade and the cake
Yeah.
as he's answering Eric's Vox box.
Let me see it.
I'll put it on the Facebook page.
Let me see the picture. Yeah.
Looks fine.
Yeah.
You're talking.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Anyway, So I mean, I don't. The answer is nobody really knows, and I don't think the studios even know. I think they want to wait to see it. But here's my feeling: pretty much most of the movies that you actually would want in a collection, they exist already. I can't think of many things over the last 15 years that are really insanely collectible. Maybe 20 or 30 films if you're like really hardcore. So there it is.
Well, my fear is that the death of home video, if it's coming, packaged home video, really means the death of caring about the history of film.
Could be.
Because ultimately,
already, if you talk to film students, anything made pre-Fight Club really doesn't mean anything to them.
That's right. So if you want to watch anything from Lawrence of Arabia to The Thin Man, where are you going to find that?
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be on. Maybe you can stream it on Netflix. Once Netflix has, wait, how's the cake?
It's good. It's very good. It's quite good.
Are you surprised?
No, you've become quite a baker. You have.
That's my fear. Now, when it comes to privilege, I find that an interesting word to use because it implies a certain demand, as if, we are going to sustain this industry, so you must give us what we want. I think that the studios will only do whatever makes them money. They have no interest in the history of film, maintaining their legacy as a company.
None.
Whatever's going to make them money, that's what they will do. So that's why this whole thing about the whole 4K Ultra Blu-ray thing, I don't know where that's going, man. I just don't.
I think the fact that there are companies out there like Twilight Time and Olive and Shout Factory who go to the studios and say, there's a collector's market for these movies. Would you please let us license them? That bodes well. Unfortunately, a lot of these movies need to be restored. They need to be restored badly. Really, really, they need a lot of work. And those companies are not able to do that extensive restoration work. So, to my mind, I'm less concerned about the privilege of collectors, which I think exists on a certain level. I mean, you hear people whining and, why isn't this out? And, why is it? And they know all the versions. Why isn't this version of that movie out? I'm so insulted. You need to release blah, 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 blah. I think that exists, and it always will exist, and I don't think the studios care, but I'm much more concerned about why they aren't restoring certain movies. I'm okay with a movie not being released on packaged media as long as I know that they've gone and they've gotten the elements out and they've gone to somebody like Robert Harris and they've given him the money so that it will last forever, so that I know it's not rotting somewhere in a vault.
But if they give them money, the way to make that money back is to then release it on Blu-ray.
Or streaming, if they make a real big streaming push. Because that's where a lot of money is now. So
well, here's the thing, though.
I want those movies restored.
I was at the office the other day, and in completely unrelated conversation that I came from nowhere, one of my editors says, I was kind of coming in the middle of the conversation. One of my editors says, I don't like it if Blu-ray goes away. And again, I don't work at a Blu-ray company, whatever. he goes, I don't care. What it bothers me about Blu-ray going away potentially is that you're going to miss the commentaries, the documentaries, all the stuff that makes it a legacy title worth learning about, caring about, putting it in context, historical context. You're going to miss all that if it's just streaming. Wade, you liked that cake, didn't you?
Damn good cake.
Thank you very much.
Oh.
By the way, you realize I made that cake like 2 weeks ago and froze it, and then I unfroze a slice just for you.
Wow. My gosh.
Well, because here's the thing.
I'm special.
You're special, all right. Here's the thing. I like baking, and I want to learn how to bake cakes, but I don't want to bake a 9-inch cake because, I don't have a wife or kids, no one to serve it to. I'm not going to bring it to work. Screw them. So I make 6-inch cakes. So I'm looking for recipes for 6-inch cakes. I found that recipe.
All right.
That's good.
It is good.
Anyway,
really good.
so it's a great question, Eric. It's a wide-ranging question. As Wade says, we could talk about for the next half an hour. I'll just say that, put it this way. If every single movie ever made came out in a Blu-ray special edition, I would be happy with saying that was the last word in all packaged media forever.
Agreed.
But now you've got movies that aren't coming out at all. They haven't come out on Blu-ray. They come out on bare bones with a transfer that's not good or elements that are old. And so you get a lot of variations of quality that makes me feel like a lot of great movies, the definitive packaged version has yet to be released.
And on that note, and thank you again, Eric, it's a really good question. On that note, we're going to wrap out with some classic films. We've got stuff from the aforementioned Twilight Time, Criterion, MGM and 20th, and Kino. Let's see if we can get through these. I'm going to start off with some Twilight Time titles. The latest batch of Twilight Time is really good. All of them on Blu-ray. None of them ever before on Blu-ray. Pretty great stuff. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Not a good film, but a really important film. Stanley Kramer. This is one of those legendary films that everyone's heard of. Very few people have seen.
It really is not a good movie.
It's not a good movie. But it was a Stanley Kramer movie.
Look, the whole idea of this movie is like the whole thing hinges on whether the old white man is going to emerge from his little throne room.
The old white liberal.
Old white liberal emerge from his throne room and decide whether his white daughter can marry the African American.
First of all, Katharine Hepburn is wonderful in this. Spencer Tracy's wonderful, and Sidney Poitier is wonderful. Who's not wonderful is Catherine Houghton, who is
I know.
Katharine Hepburn's niece.
What are you going to do?
And she's just terrible. She's just absolutely terrible in this film. And everything about her, you just go, why is she in this movie? And then you find out she's Katharine Hepburn's niece, and you go, oh, that's why. Because she sticks out like a sore thumb in a cast of greats. But obviously the idea is, this white liberal, Spencer Tracy, who so all for racial equality. If suddenly his daughter came home with a black fiancé, how liberal would he really be? And you're right. He goes to his throne room and he has to wrestle with it. And, everyone who knows this is a Stanley Kramer movie, he's not going to come out and turn into Archie Bunker. It's just not going to happen.
I would love to see that movie.
I know, it'd be great.
Kramer's work has not held up. It really
doesn't.
hasn't.
Well, it didn't hold up at the time. It didn't hold
there
up
were all
at the
these.
time.
There were all these on the nose issue movies.
It was.
Although On the Beach, I liked On the Beach. Although I don't like the blue screen shots of Fred Astaire driving a race car.
You realize at the time after Oliver Stone made Natural Born Killers, Quentin Tarantino so hated it that to him the ultimate insult was to say Oliver Stone is Stanley Kramer with style. That to him was an insult. So that tells you how.
I'm not sure I understand that.
That's how Tarantino feels about Stanley Kramer as well. William Rose wrote an okay script, but it's very theatrical. It's very stagey. It's clearly all shot on a soundstage. But it's historically significant. A group of film historians give you a commentary. You get some introductions, which include, Tom Brokaw and Steven Spielberg and Quincy Jones, and a whole bunch of behind the scenes and supporting stuff, which all of it contextualizes this and gives you a sense of why this film was important at the time. But look, let's be serious. She doesn't come home with a black man. She comes home with Sidney Poitier.
The greatest man.
It's just
the handsomest, most upright man ever to live.
It's like you would throw your child overboard to just it's like, I don't even care if you're going to marry him. I'm disowning you, and now I'm going to I want this Sidney Poitier for my child instead because he's just so amazing. He transcends. He doesn't just transcend race. He transcends mortality.
Now, if she came home, with like Fred Berry from What's Happening, that'd be a whole different movie.
A whole different movie. Also, from Twilight Time, is Woody Allen's Midsummer Night's Sex comedy. They keep mining these great Woody Allen films. This is not classic Woody, but it's really fun Woody. Maybe one of the last super fun Woodies. It's just completely off the wall. All the people he was working with at the time, including Mia Farrow and Tony Roberts. Great cast. Also in this, Jose Ferrer and Julie Haggerty. Super fun, silly movie. Summer Lovers. It was just cheeseball at the time. I remember this is a movie we made fun of because Randall Kleiser went from Blue Lagoon into this, and it just felt like his next stop was going to be softcore. Basically, just a love triangle. Well, I think not a love triangle, just a menage a trois with Peter Gallagher, Daryl Hannah, and Valerie Kennison, just cavorting around in the sun and in the surf and the sand in Europe, and not much else going on there. But it's become kind of a weird kitsch classic. House of Bamboo, pretty terrific movie, actually. Samuel Fuller, one of his best films, I think. Really one of his best films. Certainly one of his best-looking films from 1955. Great, just super cool gangster film. That is a must-have on Blu-ray. And then the last one from Twilight Time, which is really interesting, is Yoji Yamada's The Little House. Yoji Yamada, of course, is the Oscar-nominated director of The Twilight Samurai, a foreign language nominee some years ago. Great director. He made this last year, 2014. It got no traction here. So this amazingly cool look at a Japanese family against the period of the 1930s and 40s. Just all the political turmoil going along there is just absolutely wonderful. It's one of his best films and a very, very distinguished career. They picked this up from the Shokiku Library, and I applaud them for doing so.
Wait, here's
Mark,
what I applaud.
Yes.
I applaud two great criterions this week. When have we ever said, this week, two crappy criterions? Two criterions that just really didn't hit the mark. We never said that.
No.
They're always good criterions.
Never happens.
Well, now we're talking Day for Night, folks. Day for Night. Truffaut, 1973. Yeah, I love this movie. This is one of the great movies about movie making and what movie making means. There's a funny line in the movie where Truffaut plays the director who's directing this film, and he says that making a movie is like taking a stagecoach trip through the Old West. He says, at first you hope for a pleasant trip, then you hope to reach your destination, which is pretty much what movie making can be a lot of times. And this movie is just really just, this is fun stuff. It's a farce, but it's not like silly. You know, it's and because it's Truffaut, it can't just be like a parody or about movie making. There's got to be these other themes about how, like, whether or not how films stack up in terms of like life itself, and whether films are more important than life, what it means to make a film,
awesome.
all the sort of other
movie.
Stuff. It's just a great movie.
It's
got a great cast, and I have to say that. This is 1973, so it is moderately late to end period Truffaut. He still had a bunch of good films left in him, which is cool. But this is just it's very compassionate. It's got a lot of references to other movies and other people, but it's not like super inside, especially because a lot of the people he name checks maybe you wouldn't have heard of because it's from 1973. But I just think this thing is just terrific. It's just a beautiful, crazy, cool, big, sloppy kiss to the filmmaking industry, what it means to make movies and what movies mean to people. And, Day for Night, 1973. Of course, Criterion knocks it out of the park with a 2K restoration, which looks pretty good. 4K would have been better, but 2K is good, too. A bunch of film scholar stuff, a documentary from 2003 about the film, a bunch of archival interviews from that include Truffaut. Anyway, this is great stuff. Performances are great. It's not hilarious funny, but it's just really a pleasant, fun parody farce about making a movie.
Sweet.
Liked it a lot.
And then some spaghetti westerns as we wrap this out.
Well, but we got to say this.
Well, you'll finish with that, and then I'll do the spaghetti westerns. Then we're done.
What is Dressed to Kill?
Do it.
Dressed to Kill, 1980. This is Brian De Palma. This is Brian De Palma. It's hard to believe, Brian De Palma is probably known most to modern audiences as the guy who happened to direct the first Mission Impossible, which at the time was that was a weird choice to direct Mission Impossible because Brian De Palma was almost, it was a good one. Yeah. Brian De Palma was almost a genre. There was a De Palma film. When you say De Palma film, stylistically that meant something. Just a lot of just crazy virtuoso, explicit violence and creepiness and just, if you saw like a Blowout That's another De Palma film that's just
Yeah.
terrific.
All the quasi Hitchcock.
All
stuff.
that quasi Hitchcock stuff is just great. So this is Dressed to Kill. It's about this murder in Manhattan and the woman's shrink and son and this prostitute. They all kind of get together to try to solve the murder. And it's great. It's so incredibly stylistic. I can't say that from a story perspective. This is like the greatest thing ever made, but it's so stylish. And the museum sequence is amazing. And the stuff, even this one sheet, right, with the leg and the
It's one of the all-time classic.
one of the
one
all-time
sheets.
classic
Yeah.
one sheets, right? Just reminds you of that scene in the film, which is so great. It's great. It's just a terrific movie. I cannot recommend it enough. From 1980. Again, a lot of the people here are still around, so you do get new conversations with De Palma and Noah Baumbach. Kind of an interesting Q&A there. New interviews with Nancy Allen and the producer of the film, George Leto, the composer, and the 2001 documentary on the making of Dressed to Kill. It's just a really, really good movie.
And from the heyday of the spaghetti western, we have a quartet from Kino Lorber, part of their Studio Classics line. And the first one is from 1967. This is Navajo Joe with Burt Reynolds playing a vengeful Native American. I think Burt Reynolds is part Native American, isn't he? I think he's like part Cherokee or something in real life.
He's part cool.
Anyway, they really make him up here. Burt Reynolds actually made a spaghetti western. In this case for director Sergio Corbucci, who of course was the original Django director, and it's okay. It's not bad. It dates surprisingly well, much better than a lot of the stuff, mainly because Burt Reynolds is so good in it. And that's from 1967. It also includes a commentary by film historian Gary Palmucci. And then it also has a trailer for the next film, which is A Reason to Live, A Reason to Die, which is from Tonino Valeri, one of the lesser-known spaghetti western guys, who mainly known for My Name is Nobody. And this one, he has a great cast: James Coburn, Telly Savalas, and Bud Spencer. If you don't know Bud Spencer, you'll know him when you see him on screen. Anyway, this is all kind of Civil War related, but on the fringes of the Civil War, there's kind of a I don't want to call it a heist film, but there's a fort capture thing going on. It's actually pretty decent film. You also get Telly Savalas in A Town Called Hell, which is from Robert Parrish. This is not technically a spaghetti western, but it kind of belongs to that same era. It was from 1971, just a year before A Reason to Live, A Reason to Die. And Robert Parrish made a lot of pretty decent films from the era, including like The Destructors. You get a nice cast with Robert Shaw in this as well. This is, it's, kind of, Magnificent Seven-ish in some respects. Good cast: Robert Shaw, Martin Landau, Stella Stevens, Fernando Rey, and Telly Savalas. Come on, Telly Savalas is great in movies. And then lastly, also from the spaghetti western field, is director Sergio Solima's Face to Face, which has a great Ennio Morricone score. And by the way, Ennio Morricone also scored Navajo Joe, but Face to Face is just sensational. Absolutely terrific. Beautiful, beautiful score. One of his most underrated scores, I think, because so few people actually know about it. But this is actually supposedly a parable about fascism transitioning to the American West, and it's if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. I'm not sure I totally buy it, but it does kind of make sense. So anyway, this has both versions of it, the Italian cut and the American cut, which are in many respects pretty different. So that's a good release as well. So bravo, Kino Lorber, you've given us some great spaghetti westerns and quasi-spaghetti westerns to chew on this week. And with that, Mark, we are done.
We're done.
We're done. See everybody next week.